Welcome to Digital Marketing for Contractors, a podcast for home improvement contractors to help you crush your lead goals and take your business to the next level. Join us each episode as we give you powerful insights and practical tips on the best digital marketing strategies to help you grow your home improvement business. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Digital Marketing for Contractors podcast. This is a podcast for home improvement contractors where we help you crush your lead goals and take your business to the next level. Digital Marketing for Contractors is hosted by Fat Cat Strategies. We are a digital marketing agency based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. My name is Don, and I'm an account manager here at Fat Cat.
Hey, I'm Janet, and I am the founder and managing partner.
And Janet, today we have a great topic that I think is going to tie in really well to some of what we talked about in some previous episodes where we talked about the levels of a contractor business. And if you're interested in kind of checking some of that out, you can go back and listen to episodes 4, 5, and 6. But in a couple of those episodes, we talked about the idea of building brand awareness and really kind of helping the people in your local area get to know your company and building kind of a reputation so that you are a known entity in your area. But this can be kind of a tricky thing for contractors to navigate. And so I think it's really good that we're going to spend a whole episode just kind of diving into, what is brand awareness? When should we be working on it? How should we work on it? Like all of those kinds of things. So let's just kind of start out there at the beginning. Like, what are we talking about when we're talking about brand awareness?
So when we're talking about brand awareness, it's just how aware is the general public in your service area of your brand? So if we take like a really big one, Lowe's and Home Depot, they've got amazing brand awareness. If you think I need to buy some plywood and you live in a metropolitan area or even, many rural areas, you're thinking I'm going to go to Lowe's or Home Depot. That's brand awareness. So how did they get there? They get there through a lot of advertising and through community outreach. So for our contractors, for the purposes of what we're talking about today, I think, Don, one of the things that you wanted to talk about was sort of lean heavy into the community outreach.
Yeah. Well, I think, you bring up, by bringing up those couple like big national brands is helpful because when we're talking about brand awareness, we're not only talking about like the name of the business and what kind of products or services you sell, although those are the most important things. But we're also kind of talking about like, what is your reputation? Like, what are the kind of like, softer skill sort of things that your company is known for? So like when we're talking Home Depot and Lowe's, it might be things like, well, we know that these companies have like everything under the sun when it comes to DIY home stuff, but you also are probably going to get the cheapest prices if you go to those places. And they're trying to really do a lot at helping people figure out how to do it themselves. That like all of that is kind of part of those brands, is understanding this is the kind of company we are. This is what we do. Like, I used to every Saturday morning take my boys to Home Depot for a kids workshop, where they learned how to build
I didn't know
like,
they did kids workshops.
Simple craft kind of thing. But that's part of their brand, is that they want it to feel like we can help you figure out how to do things for yourself. And that was one of the ways that they do that.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
So when we're talking about brand awareness, we're talking about those kinds of things. So for you guys as a contractor, it's not just like, hey, we're ABC Roofing and we install roofs in the, Metro St. Louis area. All of that might be true, but it's also like you can expect these things from us if you were to get a job done with us. All of that is part of your brand and helping, the people in your area kind of get to know that about you. So it's, it's what you do, but it's also the reputation that you have. And especially for local businesses, I think that's really important for helping develop, who you are and what you're known for in terms of, how you can really come to be successful in your market.
Yeah. So, you keep hitting on the word reputation. So, taking this in a slightly negative direction, which I don't really want to do, but if you're not careful, your brand can be known for doing really bad work.
Yeah. Right. And, that's especially become true in the age of online reviews, and we've talked about that some already, but just the idea of, if one of the quickest places that people try to find out about your brand is by looking at your Google reviews and seeing, are you a mostly 5-star company, or do you have a lot of like 3 stars and below, and what's going on there if that's the case? Like that's definitely a part of brand awareness and just trying to figure those things out. So I think that's I think that's a great place to kind of move to sort of the next topic, is just to say, like, when should a contractor really think about working on brand awareness? Like, is this an all the time kind of thing, or what does a contractor need to do to help be aware of their reputation?
So I'm going to refer back to some earlier episodes. Don, you teed them up at the beginning of this episode. So in episodes 4, 5, and 6, we took a really deep dive into levels of contractor businesses. And so a quick recap of that. A level 1, you're just kind of trying to survive in advance. You're looking for work. You probably don't have the biggest staff. If you're the owner, then you are estimating the jobs, writing up the quotes, supervising any kind of subs that you have. At night, you or your wife are doing the bookkeeping. You're doing it all. That's level 1.
Yeah, wearing all the hats.
Wearing all the hats. Level 2, you've advanced to the next level. And, in those episodes, we take a pretty deep dive that there can be a wide range of scales of businesses in that level 2 category, from like 3 million all the way up to $20+ million in revenue. For brand awareness, we've seen really those higher end level 2 companies moving into level 3. They start to really get into thinking about building brand awareness once they've nailed so many other parts of their business.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think, when we were talking about this episode before we started rolling, we kind of talked about, if any of you out there are reading business books, if you've read anything about like the Rockefeller habits, if you think about a glass and you fill it with rocks and rocks take up the most space and sand takes up the least amount of space, you want to fill your glass first with rocks. And those rocks are the most important things. Otherwise, you fill it up with all these little things that take your time and energy, and then you don't have room for the rocks. So brand awareness, if you are level 1, mini level 2, I don't think it's a rock yet. Yeah. I mean, I'm willing to have that debate, but you've got other problems to solve before you start doing some of this kind of community outreach, softer, brand building exercises.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and especially, as we're thinking about like subdivisions of marketing, then, for contractors, like marketing, the A+ level of marketing always has to be about lead generation. We're really trying to make sure that we're bringing in leads for the business. And so brand awareness is a part of marketing, but it's not critical necessarily to lead gen. It really has more to do with figuring out, how are you going to move to that place that a level 3 contractor is trying to get to, of dominating your market? Not just...
What do you mean by dominating? Because we keep saying that. I think I know what you mean, but I think it's worth it to spell it out here and now.
So it's the idea of like, if let's go back to the made up example I used a minute ago. If I'm living in the Metro St. Louis area and I need to get my roof replaced, that from the top of my mind, the first thing that comes to mind is ABC Roofing. That's dominating the market. It's because I've already heard of them. I know of them. I probably know somebody who has had their roof redone by ABC Roofing in my neighborhood. I've seen their trucks. I've seen their commercials. I might even know somebody who works for ABC Roofing. But the point is, like, they are the go-to company in my area for roofing because they have worked really hard at building that brand and doing quality work. And so I know of them before I even need to get my roof done. Like, they are dominating the market because they are the most well-known player in the roofing game for just the general population. And so when anybody is looking to have their roof done, that's who they're likely to call because they have dominated the market.
Yeah. And so that is an example of a locally owned company in a metro area dominating a segment. In our made-up example, we're talking about roofing. When we talk about that level of top-of-mind brand awareness, what springs to mind for me often are national companies that, and I'm going to be honest, I don't exactly know how they operate, but I think they might operate on like a franchise model. So, what comes to mind for me is maybe like a Renewal by Andersen.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about replacing all your windows, you're probably going to have a few names pop into your head, and those are going to be Pella, Marvin, and Anderson.
Yeah.
And then, Renewal by Anderson, there's all these installers all over the country. And that brand awareness is supported by national advertising campaigns and national brand awareness campaigns. Now, we have seen smaller than these national manufacturers. We've seen regional players that might have locations in multiple metro areas in one state or be in 3 adjacent states. We've actually had clients that grew to that level, where they build brand recognition after they've solved a lot of other problems, and they do it through community outreach, through television advertising, through TV advertising, through sponsorships, through charitable works. So we've seen it at the national level, and we've seen it where it's still an independently owned private business, but most likely they've grown to the point where they have multiple locations and are serving multiple towns and multiple metro areas.
Yeah, that's right. So I think even just kind of highlighting that is a great way of sort of talking about when is a contractor ready or not ready to really think about doing brand awareness. And I think the point you're kind of making is if you are at the stage where you know what kind of work you do and what kind of work you want, and maybe more specifically to that point, what kind of work you don't want. We do these types of services or sell these types of products, and we don't go over here. This is who we are. This is what we're going to be about. And now you're at the point where you're ready to kind of be the industry leader in your area. That's the great time to really think about how do we begin investing more in brand awareness. You're not really ready yet if your services aren't clearly defined, if you're still taking kind of whatever work you can get to be able to pay the bills. And really if there's not any wiggle room in your marketing budget, if you need every penny of your marketing budget to go towards lead generation, then you're probably not ready for brand awareness yet either, because it's going to cost you a little bit, and it may not be the easiest to track in terms of how it's producing leads.
So we keep using this term, brand awareness, brand awareness. I don't think we've defined it yet.
Right. Yeah.
Let's try to define it. So what do you mean when you say you're not ready for those brand awareness activities?
Yeah. Well, you gave some really good examples, I think, there of just saying we're talking about the ways that you can invest in your community that are going to help get the name of your business out there. So it could be anything from you sponsor a Little League team and your business logo is now on the jerseys of the kids playing Little League baseball, and it's out, on a big flyer out in the field somewhere. It can be some kind of community sponsorship, whether you're sponsoring an organization or an event like a race or, any of those kinds of things. You could sponsor a calendar or a flyer or something like that goes out in the mail or gets dropped off at coffee shops, and people can pick it up. So
I've got an example.
All right.
I can't believe, I feel kind of dumb that we've sat through this whole episode. We helped one of our clients do one of these last night. So we have here locally in the Raleigh, Durham area, we have a client that is a luxury custom home builder. So they are building, incredibly custom mini mansions, $2, $3, $4, $7 million homes.
Yeah, your basic starter castles.
Yeah, your basic starter castle. So this client, one of their goals is to keep very good relationships with some of the realtors that make the introductions to them that lead to, to getting a client that's going to build this custom home.
Yeah.
So last night, one of the folks on our staff organized and went to an event for the realtors that drive some of their business and leads. And it was a class to build cheese boards, where if you're going to put together a charcuterie plate, it was like a class on charcuterie, if I'm saying that correctly.
Sounds yum.
That is brand awareness.
Yeah.
You are sponsoring an event, hosting an event, inviting key players who help support your business in your local market, and you're going to leave them with a good impression and, a belly full of snacks in this case.
Yeah.
This same client on I don't know that this is exactly brand awareness. You could debate me. I'll tell you what we did.
Okay.
We've organized a subcontractor lunch event where in a neighborhood where they were building multiple homes, we got a food truck that did chicken wings. And we told all the subs, hey, if on this day, if you're in this neighborhood, free chicken wings. And then we posted it on social media.
Yeah.
And so we made, a little bit of a big deal about it.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things
That's a
that
great example.
are
Yeah.
not direct lead gen activities.
That's right.
But you are putting together some sort of event, something fun, a golf outing, a class on how to build a charcuterie plate, free chicken wings for your subs. Those are all legit, actual examples of things that we've helped coordinate for a custom home builder here in our area.
Yeah. So all of that is exactly right and spot on for kind of what it looks like. Brand awareness is really about like relationship and reputation building. So you are connecting with people in your community or organizations in your community. You're serving and meeting needs in your community. You're showing up in the places that are important to your community and to your potential customers, and you're being present and even showing how you're willing to help out. It builds your reputation and your presence as a company so that you become more known. And then when people are interested in, your services, you're going to be the company that they think of. That's really what it's about. So on to that point then, I think we've given some good examples, but let's talk a little bit about just kind of best practices when it comes to brand awareness, things that you should be doing when you really think about it. And we've kind of hinted at this one already, but I want to say it explicitly here, which is that when you're thinking about brand awareness, you need to just accept that brand awareness is a different form of marketing than what you probably have been doing most of the time in your company's history, which has been about lead generation.
Yeah. If you're going to go, where are the leads?
Yeah. That's the wrong question to ask when it comes to brand awareness. Brand awareness is not easily trackable when it comes to really any kind of results, leads or otherwise. But it is important to building up your reputation and the ability for you to dominate your market. So it should affect your leads, but it's not likely going to be something that you can track. So it's going to be hard to really be able to tell, oh yeah, it was worth it for us to, make that sponsorship of that little league team, because you don't know what's coming from that or not. And there's no real way to trace that. But it is raising your awareness in the community, and that is valuable. So, when the tide rises, all boats rise with it. That's whatever that saying is. Like, that's kind of the idea behind brand awareness. It should raise things for your company, but it'll be hard for you to figure out exactly how it did that.
Yeah, so let's talk about the mechanics of that and connect it back to lead gen.
Okay.
So I'm just going to make something up off the top of my head. Let's say that you are in a state where high school football is something people go bonkers about, and you have sponsored.
We're in the South. That's basically every state around us. Yeah.
Well, I think high school football gets more crazy in Texas
Yep.
and maybe Mississippi and
Yep.
places like that. So if you're in one of those communities and high school football, the sun rises and sets with high school football in the fall, and you sponsor the local team, you might have a hard time connecting lead gen to that. But let's say you sponsor that local team, and then, a fan of the local team then needs a thing. They want their bathroom redone. They want their kitchen redone. They need their roof replaced. And then they Google something like roofing contractor near me, bathroom contractor near me, zero entry shower installer, something like that.
Yep.
And then up pops your name. Well, guess what? They have a very positive association of your company because they saw your banners all around the football field in the fall. So that's how, that's when we're saying you can connect, but it's a very soft connection, brand awareness to lead gen. It just helps someone feel confident to go ahead and interact with your company because they've heard of you, they've seen you in the community, and they have a positive association with you.
Yeah, that's great. So as you're saying that, a kind of a story came to mind from one of my clients who was kind of in this top of the level 2, kind of stage of their business. And as I was working with them, we were just kind of looking at what percent of their traffic to their website was coming from, the different things that we were spending money on. And for these guys, it was like almost 90% of their traffic was coming from paid ads, from ads on Google or Facebook or whatever. And as we started talking about it, it was like, why is that? Like, we're doing a whole bunch of other things as well. We're working on their SEO. We've got email marketing going. There's all kinds of other things. Like, why is that happening? And we really kind of started to explore, well, they're able to spend a whole lot of money on PPC because of the stage that their business was at, but they hadn't really invested at all into brand awareness. And so as the puzzle started to become clearer to us, what we realized was people are clicking on their ads because they're showing up at the top of the page. But when it came to finding them on any other place or for any other reason, nobody recognized their name. So they were showing up next to some other national competitors that, that people recognized and were willing to click on. They showed up next to things like Home Depot and Lowe's that people were willing to click on, but they didn't know this company's brand name. And so when they saw them just pop up randomly, it was well, I don't know who that is. Why am I going to click on it? And it's a great example of okay, they're really being hurt by a lack of brand awareness. And so we started saying, let's put some money into some of these kind of community organization and community sponsorship kinds of things. And over the past, several months as that's happened, we've started to see all of that other stuff is really kicking in. So the percentage of what they're getting from PPC has gone down proportionately as all the other things have started to come up.
It sounds counterintuitive, but, as you're talking, I'm picturing that classic pie chart. When we're looking at either web traffic stats or lead generation stats, we've got all kinds of software we can analyze that. And if you're telling me that either all of their traffic or all their leads, we could trace 90% of them back to PPC, to me, that's like a red warning bell going off.
Big danger.
It's a big danger because you are living and dying, by Google's PPC rules.
Yeah.
And those can change quickly overnight. And you can, your ads can stop working as well, or a competitor can come in and outspend you. But a more healthy mix of that, and I think what you're saying is you're starting to achieve that, is as you have more local brand recognition, when we do an analysis of both web traffic and lead generation, we will actually see a fair chunk come from the source we call direct.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at an analytics report, there'll be direct, CPC or PPC, which is, paid ads, then referral, maybe some from organic, some from social. And if you see a pretty big chunk of web traffic and leads coming from that source called direct, what does direct mean? It means if you are, we'll go back to Don's earlier episode, ABC Roofing in St. Louis. People went to the internet and they typed in ABC Roofing and went directly to your website.
Yeah.
That is an indication of somebody that already knew who your business was and they went directly to it. They didn't first search on a related term and then discover you.
Yeah.
And so when we see our clients, advance through these levels that we talked about in episodes 4, 5, and 6, one of the things that we really like to see is we like to see more traffic coming to their site from direct sources, because it says that they've got a really great reputation in the areas that they serve, and neighbors are talking to neighbors, or there's other campaigns going on to build that brand recognition, and people are going directly to their website and they're skipping the search and they're skipping the ads, and they want to quote from that company.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I think, great examples there, helping us really kind of understand some of that. What about, I'm thinking about contractors who might be listening to this episode and going, well, I kind of do that, because we go show up at all these different events and stuff, and we have a booth and we promote our stuff, and isn't that brand awareness? If we're talking about sometimes people
yes
call
and
it
no on
field
that.
marketing. Is field marketing brand awareness?
Field marketing. Wow, we've seen it be such a huge component of success, especially for some of our bath clients. I think we should do a whole episode on field marketing.
Yeah, agreed.
Let's do that.
Yeah. So we'll just tease that for right now.
We'll just tease it and say, field marketing is, in the realm of brand awareness, but there's all kinds of KPIs that you can actually track back to field marketing.
Right.
And it is its own beast that requires it, a lot of logistics to make work really well. But if you can get it to work really well, boy, howdy, does it work.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, field marketing does accomplish some brand awareness for you, but it's still primarily about lead generation. And I think that's kind of the difference from what we're talking about with these other
there's a distant cousin of field marketing that's canvassing. Since the pandemic, especially our roofing and exterior clients used to do a lot of canvassing. I haven't really heard many of our clients bring canvassing back online.
Yeah.
I think you could have a really healthy debate about whether or not canvassing was brand awareness. And I would go ahead and plant my flag in the ground and say it's not.
Okay.
I would say it is old school boots on the ground lead gen with hardcore KPIs.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting there thinking, well, I do canvassing and I do field marketing, I still don't think you're really doing the kind of brand awareness that we're talking about on today's episode.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So, we've kind of talked a lot about the fact that the results are hard to measure, or at least hard to track when it comes to brand awareness. But can we at least ask the question, like, what are the results then? Like, why would we do this in the first place if, we can't tell what the results are, or we don't even know if we're getting results from it? Like, maybe we can't measure it, but are there some signs that we could look to that says, oh yeah, our brand awareness is working, like this is helping? And I know it kind of, as you and I were talking, off mic a little bit before we recorded, you were telling a story about, a client who was doing some brand awareness and turned it off. And we saw some examples of what happened there. Tell us that story.
Yeah. So we had a client, actually still have this client, was doing a lot of radio sponsorships. So radio advertising and sponsoring like sports talk programs.
Yeah.
And then we started helping them with their SEO and their digital marketing. They didn't tell us how much stuff they were doing on the radio. We honestly didn't even know. And then they turned off all radio. So we saw...
Yeah, because in their mind, they were just thinking...
They were like, oh, well, I was
we've
spending
got all
money
this
on
new thing
radio.
now. Yeah.
Now I'm spending money on PPC and SEO. I guess I don't need radio anymore because it's old school. And when they stopped doing the radio sponsorships, we saw their web traffic, their leads, all of our digital campaigns took a noticeable dive. And so, I guess... I'm being a little bit vulnerable here on this podcast and saying like, okay, yeah, we're digital marketing people, but I'm going to go ahead and admit that the offline stuff helps the online stuff.
Yeah.
And if you had some sort of campaign, some sort of activity in your community that you were building brand awareness, and then you suddenly pull out of it, we see that having a negative impact on your web traffic and your online lead gen.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I mentioned it before, but I think it's the basic idea of how brand awareness should help elevate everything that you're doing. All the boats should rise if you're doing really good brand awareness, because it will help get more customers into the top of your marketing funnel, and they will eventually come out the bottom as customers. So that's really the goal is, there ought to be more people kind of in the orbit of your business because they're aware of you as a company. And the longer that takes place, the more that you will see your leads go up in every place and your sales go up in every place, really because you've been doing great brand awareness work. So, okay, I think we've covered it pretty well. We would like to make you aware of the fact that we have a resource to help you out with building brand awareness. So if you want to go to fatcatstrategies.com/brand, you can check out our free resource there and download it from our site to be able to give you some tips on how you can build good brand awareness in your area and how to be able to get some help doing that as well if you need it. So check that out at fatcatstrategies.com/brand. That's it for today on Digital Marketing for Contractors. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we look forward to talking to you next time. We'll see you. Digital Marketing for Contractors is created by Fat Cat Strategies. For more information, visit fatcatstrategies.com.